Good day traders, this is Stefanos on behalf of Tixee, and in today's webinar we'll be giving an outlook of the market for the week of the 26th until the 30th of September. Now looking at some of the highlights for next week, in the stocks front, FedEx was yet again under the spotlight as it had two price target revisions lower. On the Forex front, we'll have inflation data from the EU as well as manufacturing data from several of the world's largest economies. But first, a disclaimer. As always, please note that all of the ideas discussed in the webinar are my own opinions and do not make up for any form of investment, trading advice, neither any recommendations to buy or sell. You should always do your own research and due diligence before buying or selling any securities, financial products or instruments, and whether you use any kind of trading strategies. Any information that relates to past performance is not indicative of future results. So, looking at stocks, as we mentioned during the intro, we had FedEx, which found itself again under the spotlight, just like last week. Now, if you remember, just as a reminder, which if you're tuned in for the for this week's look back, you will have also seen this. But essentially, we had FedEx last week dropping by more than 20% after it missed its earning estimates, and this carried over into this past week as well. Because essentially we had several brokerage firms downgrading the stock further. Well, it looks like it's not really going to be catching a break from that, because we had yet another two firms this Friday that basically what they did is they lowered their price targets for the stock. Now, they didn't change the rating for the stock. They actually kept it at an outperform rating. But nevertheless, of course, we have the news that they revised their price targets lower, which of course, looking at the algorithms or the retail investors or even hedge funds and so on and so forth, this could mean that, for example, they could be seeing this as negative and potentially shorting the stock even further. Now, as for the price targets themselves, so we had one of the brokerage firms being Cohen, which changed the target from $230 down to $185, which is a staggering 19.5% drop. And meanwhile, we also had Evercore, which revised its price target from $243 to $225. Now, if we want to take on the positives from these two, is the fact that both of these price targets are still well above where the price is currently at the moment. Because as we can see here, it's trading just above $150. And like we said, with the two price targets, one of them was set at $185, so it's more or less around this area here. And the other one was still set at $225, which is pretty much above the levels from this drop here. Now, of course, this is just two brokerage firms, so it doesn't mean price is going to be retracing anytime soon. Of course, it could do that next week, but the point being, it shouldn't be, for example, a blind buy trade with a hard set target at the levels that we mentioned earlier on. This is just giving us an idea of how several brokerage firms could be positioning themselves with any particular stock. So for now, those two price targets are like we said, they're sitting above, so this could be seen as something, I guess, slightly positive in these past 2 weeks where FedEx pretty much has been getting destroyed by negative news. So yeah, this is with regards to stocks. Now looking into the Forex market, we're going to be looking at the economic calendar. Things are going to be slightly quieter than last week because last week obviously we had the Fed's interest rate decision, which rocked the markets, as we covered also in this week's look back as well. Now for next week's the economic calendar, again, you can always find it by navigating to Tixee's website. You can just click on this on the logo up here, and then navigate to the news and analysis tab, and then you can click on the economic calendar. Then obviously, you have a bunch of filters that you can use, but I would say the most important would be ensuring that you set it for next week. I mean, obviously, this also depends what kind of period you're going to be looking at, but since we're going to be covering next week, I'll click on the next week option here. The other key thing is to make note of the time zone here, because you do want to be looking at the correct timing of the release of the events, because if it's not aligned, then obviously you're not going to be looking at the right time, and by the time the event releases, you could have already left the computer, and so on and so forth. So yeah, just make sure you have the time zone there set right. And then the other one is you can use these filters also to filter the importance of the events. So for the sake of the webinar, we're going to set it to the high impact event ones, and we're pretty much going to go over them together. So looking at Monday, we're going to be having production figures from members of the Eurozone. So we're going to have Finland, Spain, and Germany. Now Germany is going to be a business climate figure rather than, so it's like more or less like a sentiment index of the market itself. Whereas the other two, like we said, is going to be production data. Now, another little key piece of information is making use of the little tooltip here, which can give you a pretty good indication or like a rough idea as to the volatility you can expect in the hours following the release of an event. Moving on to Tuesday, we'll have production data again, this time from Sweden, another Nordic country. Then we'll have unemployment data from Mexico towards midday, which is going to be followed by the first of the high impact US data of the week, which is going to be housing data and durable goods orders again from the US. Now, moving on to Wednesday, we're going to have yet again consumer confidence figures from Germany, followed by production data from Brazil, and then finishing the day with unemployment data from Russia, which is, I suspect, going to be a key event, seeing as how it's still well within the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. And then moving on to Thursday, it's basically a flurry of production data, starting with Singapore, followed by Italy, and then finishing with South Africa. But again, this is going to be looking at the time zone in London time, obviously. It's going to be still within the morning hours or the regular EU session. Then towards midday, we're going to have the first sign of inflation data from one of the Eurozone members. This is going to be from Germany. And we're also going to have the one just before that, it's going to be from Belgium. So two key members are going to be releasing their inflation data close to one another. And then finishing the day with building permits from New Zealand. And then finishing the week with Friday. As you can see, it's looking like it's going to be the most active week. We're going to start things off with unemployment data from Japan, again then followed by manufacturing data from China, inflation figures data again from Indonesia if you're into trading the exotic currency pairs. Then we're going to have consumer confidence figures from Japan again, and then we have two sets of unemployment figures, one from Romania and the other one from Denmark. Then it's a series of events coming out of France. First things with production data, inflation data, and then again production, which is going to be the month-on-month figure, whereas the first one is going to be the year-over-year figure. Then again, a series of production data, this time from Hungary, and then followed by Austria's month-over-month and yearly figures. And we're also going to get one more event from Austria, which is going to be the unemployment figures. Then we're going to have another set of unemployment figures, this time from Germany, Italy, and Italy is also going to be releasing their inflation report as well, where it is expected to show an increase from last month's report. Then production data from Greece at 10 in the morning, again UK time, and then coming to the events that we mentioned during the intro, which is going to be inflation data from the EU, which is also going to be released at the same time as unemployment data as well. Then unemployment data is coming out of Cyprus as well, followed by production data from both Belgium and Luxembourg, and then one more piece of unemployment data from Brazil, and then finishing the week off with two events from the US, which is going to be personal income and spending figures, which is going to be released at midday. And this pretty much sums up the high impact events for next week. Of course, if you want, you can hover to the other two filters and you can set it to low and medium. Moving away from the FX markets and into the commodity ones, you'll want to set this to medium instead. And if we go over, let's see here, on Wednesday, as you can see, we have the regular oil inventory report. So again, you'd have to set this on the medium filter in order to be able to see this. And it's going to be released at 3:30 UK time. So yeah, you can still have a look and see if there's like any other events that interest you. But of course, as you can see, we're also going to have GDP data from the US and Canada, which is also likely to be pretty important as well. So I would say you can pretty much switch between medium and high impact events to find the events that you're looking for. But yeah, this is with regards to the economic calendar for the FX markets and commodity markets for next week. And last thing, let's just have a look at Bitcoin real quick and the crypto markets. So let me just switch this and put Bitcoin full screen chart. As you can see, things haven't really changed much. From last week. Again, we're looking at the weekly time frame. Last week is when we had this steep drop that, if I measured again, I think it was close to 10%. Let me just try. This is wrong. So let's see. So it was, yeah, just above 10%, I would say, which pretty much gave up the gains from the earlier week, which it had made up a progress of about 10%. So right now it's still trading close to this area that we have marked off several months ago. If you're tuned in either for the lookbacks or outlooks, you have noticed that I haven't really changed these areas that I have marked off here. Haven't really changed them since, I would say, 3-4 months ago. So you can see that prices are still trading within them. Either we're bouncing off of them, as you can see right here, and again we're still trading within this area. Now if it breaks below this level in a strong manner, we could see it pretty much reaching this level down here in one swift move, or we could get like a slight retest before we get a move downwards. But if we get a strong bounce yet again from here next week or over the next couple of days, we could again see a similar type of movement, as in we get a little retracement before we start moving higher into these levels. Now, of course, I would want to mark out this level because, as you can see, this is where we actually had the most recent drop from. But I'll put it like as more of a minor level. As you can see from the line, it's somewhat thinner than the other ones. Now, if in case of the scenario that it starts blowing past levels towards the downside, then obviously, like we said, the next one is close to the 14,000 mark. And if it goes past that, then I would say the next one would sit close to the $10,500 mark. So again, it depends more or less what kind of movements we'll get and what sort of momentum we're going to be seeing. Because if price is just like hovering sideways here, it's not really giving us any clues, and it will be like a little bit too soon to tell whether prices want to move higher or lower. So yeah, patience is of essence in this situation. And yeah, there you have it. This is as far as the outlook for next week's markets. I hope you enjoyed the video and you found it useful, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Until then, trade safe.